meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee, and it's Wednesday, May 11th at 10 o'clock. First business is to deal with the election of chair, and as the chair of the Licensing Committee, I'm the presiding person, so I would like to ask, please, are there any nominations for chair for subcommittee? Thank you.
Chair, could I nominate you?
Thank you, Hadley, and may I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Councillor Butt.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. Okay, then I'll just ask our clerk, Mrs. Cutler, if she kindly take us through housekeeping. Thank you.
Good morning. Please note that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the chairman. State your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. Please ensure that you unmute yourself and always turn on the video function before speaking. Please mute your microphone when you are not talking. After each party has made their representation, the chairman will ask each person in turn if they have any questions or comments. However, if at any point you would like to speak again, please use the raise your hand function at the top right of the screen. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So there are no apologies. So then on to declarations of interests. I will ask each councillor in turn if they have any declarations of interest. Councillor Hadley, any declarations of interest?
No directions, no interest. Declarations of interest. Thank you, Chair.
It's a long night last night, Councillor Hadley. Understood. Thank you very much. Councillor Johnson, any declarations of interest?
No declarations, Chair.
Thank you. And for completeness, I have no declarations of interest either. Thank you very much. So then on to item 4, which is the protocol for public speaking. And this is a revised protocol for virtual meetings, and it has been circulated with the agenda sheet, and it's also available online. So we move on then to the first substantive, which is Hospitality Marquee Bournemouth Seafront. An application has been received for a new premises licence to permit live and recorded music and the sale of alcohol on the premises between the hours of 10 AM to 2300 on Sunday to Thursday and 10 to midnight on Friday and Saturday. The matter is brought before the subcommittee for determination. So I'll now ask everybody to introduce themselves and to state their role, please. And for our councillors, if they'd like to state their ward, please do. So I'll start with myself. My name is Councillor Judith Butt. I'm chairman of the Licensing Committee, and I'm also chairman of the Licensing Subcommittee for today's business. And my ward is Creekmore, Hilborn and Waterloo. Thank you, Councillor Hadley.
My name is Councillor Andy Hadley. I'm a ward councillor in Poole Town, and I'm a member of the subcommittee.
Thank you very much. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Toby Johnson, ward member for Alderney and Bourne Valley and member of the subcommittee today.
And we also have with us today as our 2 reserves, just in case anything happens to the present subcommittee, we do have 2 reserves. We have Councillors Kelsley and Councillor Brown. Thank you so much for attending. I'm afraid I will ask you please to stay on until our second substantive, and then obviously if we're still with you, you will be free to go or stay on for training purposes. But thank you very much for standing in as reserves today. It's much appreciated. Moving on then, Tanya Jardim.
Good morning, I'm Tanya Jardim, licensing officer. Council.
Thank you. Alan Parr. Is Alan with us, or has he cut one of his 30-second cutouts?
Councillor, I think he's experiencing a cutout, but he is with us.
Okay, so Alan Parr is our legal advisor to the subcommittee. Moving on then, Mrs. Cutler.
Good morning, that's me, and I'm the clerk for today.
Thank you. And Mr. Weaver.
Good morning, I'm head of destination events and the applicant.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Wildman.
Here today with the applicant.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Sorry, Helen Wildman, event manager for BCP Council, and with John today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have Mrs. Barbara Gomez del Olmo. Are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good, thank you.
And you're here and you're representing yourself and Mr. Greenfield, is that correct?
There's several people I'm representing, must be about 10 people, if not more.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you for that. They're listed as on the objectors. Thank you very much. And then we've got Mr. Chadwick.
Yes, I'm here. I'm a resident of the East Cliff. I've taken part in discussions with people on the committee's residents in several blocks along the East Cliff. Two of those people are abroad today, and I've been asked to speak on behalf of all of us residents.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Mr. Chadwick, and you have your opportunity a little later. Thank you. So in addition to democratic services officers are providing technical support in the background, but they don't take part in the hearing. So just to be clear that all people who've given notice of their intention to speak have been identified. I think we've done that. And that anybody who wishes to withdraw representation at this moment or wishes not to speak shows themselves, please, or identifies themselves. So I'll just wait a moment. Oh, I think we're all content. So moving on. I'll now take you through the procedure for today's hearing, and it is as such. The licensing officer will present her report, and then the applicant will make their application. Questions of the applicant will be asked by all parties, and the members of the committee will obviously go first. The responsible authorities and other persons will then make their representations. Questions of the responsible authorities and other persons will then be put forward, and the members of the subcommittee will go first, and all parties have an opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude, and the subcommittee will deliberate in private with our legal advisor, hopefully won't be dropping in and out too much, and our clerk will also be present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held in accordance with the regulations, which is today, the 11th of May. And the notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate, and I'll be asking at that time for our legal advisor to advise us with regard to the right of appeal. So, that said, I would now like to ask all parties, please, if they're happy with that proposed procedure, and once that's done, we'll continue. So I will start. Mrs. Jardim, are you content?
Yes, Chair, I'm content. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Parr, are you with us? Are you content?
I'm content, yes.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Weaver?
I'm content, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. And is it Mrs. Wildman or Miss Wildman?
It's Mrs. Wildman, and yes, thank you, Chair.
Wildman, are you content? Thank you very much. And we have Mrs. Barbara Gomez del Olmo. Are you happy with that?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chadwick?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chadwick. That's lovely. So just finally, just with regard to order of the meeting, I'd like to remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information they've already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. And all questions must be asked through the chairman, please, and no cross-examination of parties. So I'll now ask our licensing officer, Mrs. Tanya Jarmin, if she would kindly present the report. Thank you, Mrs. Jardim.
Thank you, Chair. So the application before you is for the grant of a premises licence for Hospitality Marquee, situated at the top beach, just east of Groyne 17, between Bournemouth and Boston Piers. Application is made by Head of Destination and Events on behalf of BCP Council. The application is to permit regulated entertainment in the form of live and recorded music and the supply of alcohol on the premises only. The Marquee will be operated each day between the 1st of August and 4th of September, only offering a seated dining experience. In addition, for a maximum of only 8 occasions, to put on private, corporate, wedding and mid to higher end leisure events, and throughout the period of the Air Festival. Conditions have been offered by the applicant in the operating schedule, which will be imposed onto the premises licence if granted. These conditions were consulted with Dorset Police and the licensing authority prior to submitting the application. As a result, no representations have been received by any of the responsible authorities. However, members are requested to have regard to the representations made by other persons who are concerned that the application will not uphold the licensing objectives. The applicants have undertaken a mediation by way of a residents' meeting and have amended their application accordingly to deal with the concerns raised. 2 representations have since confirmed their satisfaction, and they have withdrawn their representation. I leave it with you now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jardim. So now I'll ask in turn if anybody has any questions on points of fact. That's the facts that Mrs. Jardim has put forward to us this morning. So members, do you have any questions on points of fact?
Yes, I guess you talked in terms of it being open daily, but only open for, I think you said 8 times for private functions. Is the intention that it is actually open every day, or is it to allow those functions to be at any point during that whole period, please?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jardim.
Apologies, my understanding is that it will be open between the 1st and 4th of August for the dining experience, but has these 8 specific events, but maybe the applicant can clarify a little bit better. Apologies for that.
Yes, I think it's actually the 1st of August to the 4th of September. But I think what we'll do there is, Councillor Hadley, if you're content, we'll ask that question of the applicant when we get to that. Would that be okay? Yeah, thank you. I can see you nodding. Thank you very much. Any other questions on points of fact, Councillor Hadley? No? Okay. Councillor Johnson?
No, Chair, no questions of fact. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And just going through then, Mr. Weaver. Any questions?
No.
And Mrs. Wildman?
No questions, thank you.
And Mrs. Gomez de Olmo, any questions on points of fact?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chadwick?
Yes, I do have a question, please.
Okay, we'll see. It may be the question, I'll divert somewhere else, but please put your question at the moment. Thank you.
Yes, there was an original application. There was a variation put forward, which has been referred to. And then in discussions between residents, particularly myself and the team at events, some other changes were put forward, in particular, a reduction in the end time for activities. I'm unclear whether this committee is considering the original license up to midnight, as was reported, or the new latest version, which was that music would end at 10, 10:30 and 11, according to what was actually happening.
Okay, I'm happy to answer that, Mr. Chadwick. We're actually considering the variation of the standard license. So the license as stands is the hours you quoted, and we're looking at the variation to change those hours. Okay, but we'll take you through it. If you've got any problems as we go along, put your hand up and we can take you through it. But it will all become very clear as we go on further and we hear from the applicant, who will clearly state what he's asking for. Okay, so you'll understand it better then. It is a bit confusing when you've got all sorts of documents in front of you. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chadwick. So I'll now ask our applicant, Mr. Weaver. And Mr. Weaver, are you putting forward the submission, or is it both yourself and Mrs. Wildman?
Chair, I will be putting forward the submission. However, just to let you know, I'm in the middle of Cornwall in a motorhome, and reception is a bit hit and miss.
Excuses,
so,
excuses.
It's a good excuse. But the reason I'm saying is, if it becomes, I can actually speak probably clearly without camera if that's acceptable. Otherwise, Mrs. Helen Wildman will take my place, and I will listen in and question. So okay. Just to. If that's okay with you, Chair.
Well, you seem okay at the moment, so do stay on camera. It's much more, much more incorporative if you can. Obviously, if not, then with your bandwidth, do come off. But if you'd like to put forward your submission, Mr. Weaver, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Obviously, my name is John Weaver. I am the head of Destination Events. I've worked for the council for over 20 years and have been the Air Festival Director for the past 14 years. The council is looking to provide a vibrant cultural seafront, and a part of this vision wishes to install more catering offers on the seafront along with its projects, such as more barbecues and other things. The purpose of this new premise licence is to develop this vision and extend the current hospitality offering used for the Air Festival on a trial basis to run for a month during August and early parts of September, offering a unique high-end dining experience. In answer to that question, it is a dining experience for most of that operation, and then it's open for functions as well. Although there are existing prem licenses for this area, as a new offering, and as said, very much of a trial for 1 year, following the discussion with the licensing team, we felt it was appropriate to put a new application in. As in this instance, it is not an event we are applying for, but a license for the premise with the conditions to hold now a limited number of functions within it. Although multiple premise licenses can exist for the same piece of land, only one can be used at a time to ensure that we have the appropriate license for what is required. I would like to add here that in the evidence pack submitted for the hearing listing my premises licenses, Eastcliff and Toff licenses were not included, which was an error on my part. And I can confirm that these are still in existence. The restaurant operation will be run by the same contractors that have successfully run the Air Festival hospitality offering many years with the same structure and procedures in place. This is an experienced operator, and for that reason, we are confident that the trial to operate for a longer period of time will not only be carried out safely, but also successfully. Throughout the operation, there will be a contact number for the restaurant during the business opening hours, along with an on-call system for the seafront services team. The events team will be on call for any private functions that take place as well. I currently hold 28 premises licenses for outdoor open space across BCP conurbation, and many of these have been in place for 15 years without, so far, call for review. My team oversee over 500 events across BCP area each year and are rigorous in ensuring compliance with event processes and contract management. Following, as you've said, liaison with Dorset Police and Environmental Health Officers, both are happy with the terms we put into licensing applications and not put forward our representation. As detailed in the hearing report, we have received representations from 5 residents, with a further 11 adding their names to an existing representations. We have corresponded with all our residents and held an open meeting at the Hotel Marimar on Wednesday, the 5th of May, to give an overview of the operation and answer questions from them. Following on from this meeting, we have offered mediation to address their concerns and had additional dialogue with Mr. Chadwick regarding noise management. The areas of mediation are as follows. So for live music, reduction of this to 2,200 was 2,300 weekdays and 2,359 weekends, and only for a maximum of 12 occasions plus the Air Festival. And those 12 occasions make up the 8 private functions and 4 for ambient music while the restaurant is open. For recorded music, reduction of this to 2,300 hours on Friday and Saturday, and this was 2,359. In terms of sale of alcohol, reduced to this down to 2,300 was 2,359 on Friday and Saturday, as said, with a maximum of 8 private functions and the Air Festival dates. All other times will be at 22:30. The license duration proposed reduction down from 1 year's full license to the 1st of August, from the 1st of August to the 4th of September inclusive. Noise management, we've agreed that there will not be 5 decibels above background noise at the nearest residential property. One full representation have been drawn, and a further 2 have been drawn with their notice on the representation put forward. Sorry, I beg your pardon. 15 have been withdrawn, if I'm right, with a further 2 have been withdrawn with notice on the representation put forward. I'm being just. Can I clarify that with my colleague Helen? What is the actual number, please? Oh,
sorry, that was just confirmation of 15 dB, not 5 dB above the noise. Sorry, that was just a slip of the tongue.
Okay. 1 full representation has been withdrawn, and a further 2 have been withdrawn with their notice on the representation put forward by Barbara Gomez. 2 further emails have been received confirming they are satisfied with the mediation. However, we haven't had confirmation they wish to withdraw at this moment in time. In summary, we have previous experience of running outdoor premise licenses. This is a tried and tested operation which has been extended, not a new one, using experienced operator. There is a robust and vigorous event management process using industry standards applied to this contract through the planning of it. A multi-agency approach to all our events and liaison through all the stages, and the responsible authorities have provided no representations. There's a dedicated on-site seafront operations team to oversee operations, and on-site contact number for any concerns. And the conditions within this license are put in to ensure the licensing objectives are met. That is the end of my representation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think what we'll start with then is we'll ask Councillor Hadley if you'd like to now put your question, Councillor Hadley, to Mr. Weaver. I think he'll be able to answer it.
Thank you. Well, I think he already has answered it in terms of it will be a restaurant and on every day. So that's already been covered.
Okay, you didn't want confirmation about anything else?
I do, if it's possible.
Yes. Okay, so I'll ask you then, Councillor Hadley, if you want to put any other questions. Please go ahead, unless of course Mrs. Wildman wishes to say anything.
No, thank you, Chair. Everything's been covered.
Okay then. So if you've completed your submission, then Mr. Weaver, we'll move on then, and we'll come to Councillor Hadley first. Questions of the applicant by all parties, and Councillor Hadley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. It's just in terms of the timings, Mr. Weaver, you highlighted some changes as a result of the mediation, but in the application, it talks specifically in terms of the patio terrace area, that there be no food or alcohol served on the patio terrace after 10 o'clock, after 2200 hours. I'm just not quite sure how that would be enforced, because presumably people will be able to buy things within the tent and walk out onto the patio terrace area. Could you?
Thank you. Mr. Weaver?
Over that.
That can be managed. Most of this is for indoor functions area, so we would have to manage that and actually just close that area down. For example, we just put the seats and the tables away and then just shut it out, and that's how it would be managed.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, thank you. That's great.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnson, do you have any questions at this time?
Not at this time, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I have a few points. Could you just confirm, please, those licenses that you omitted on the list? You rambled through them a little. There were two which were missing. Could you just confirm those?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. One was Toff Steps, and the other one was the East Cliff, both of which were variations last year. We omitted to include those.
I remember them. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Now, the page number is 23, I believe, of the application, and it talks of outside the hours authorised the sale of alcohol. All alcohol within the trading area is to be secured behind lock grills. Could you tell us a little more about that, please, and how that's actually going to happen, because it is in the public domain? Thank you.
Well, we've used within the within the actual adjacent to the marquee, there is another marquee, and there is a cabin. It's a solid cabin, and it's locked, so it's actually a locked cabin with the keys with the premise license. So there's a specific cabin within the actual marquee.
Okay, is that portable?
No, you can't move it. It's
okay.
Yeah, and you could be difficult. And there is also, Chair, there's security 24 hours as well.
Yes, indeed. And the other is it's come down the line. It says, unless written agreement is received by Dorset Police, no shots or shooters shall be available for the purchase after the event. I'm a little concerned about that. I'm not quite sure with regard to jurisdiction as to whether there needs to be anything in train from this subcommittee with regard to that. I don't know whether you have a comment on that, Mr. Weaver.
I don't have the only comment I would make is we deliberately took that out. We deliberately put that condition in to stop that type of, shall we say, excessive drinking that can cause that you often might see in sort of nightclubs and things like that. So we wanted to make sure it was something that we put in. But apart from that, I can't comment any further. Okay, so I'll go then to you, Mr. Parr, if I may. This is saying that there'd be a direct agreement with the police, but that would bypass this subcommittee. So I have some concerns there. Could you advise, please? Are you with us, Mr. Parr?
Chair, okay. It looks like our legal advisor make a note of that question and make sure
that's
that we.
That's very kind of you, Michelle, because of course we do need to ask that question in the public domain. It'll be part of our decision-making process. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so the other question was another comment was made, and it's public safety at sea. A procedure for supporting attending with unwell members of the public will be in place, including those who appear to be affected by alcohol or drugs. That's concerning because all the other conditions are negating that, or at least mitigating it to a full extent. So do you have any comment on that, please?
Only that if something like that did happen, if they were to, basically it's around if they were to arrive in that state, so that it wouldn't be anything while they're in there. We'd have how we would deal with that.
Okay, yes, that would make sense. Okay then. So I'm just scrolling through because you're not allowed to write anything down these days. You've got to have everything on your screen. Okay, thank you very much for answering those questions, Mr. Weaver. I'll now ask our objectors if they have any questions with regard to your submission. So firstly, I will go to Mrs. Barbara Gomez del Olmo. Do you have any questions for Mr. Weaver? Mrs. Gomez del Olmo, are you there? Can you?
She's on mute,
Sorry.
Chair.
Oh, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry, I've got building works upstairs, so I turned it off.
If you could pop your video on, please, so we can see you. Ah, there you are. Now, I'll just repeat. It's questions of the applicant. So if you have any questions for the applicant with regard to his submission.
Yeah, because I've got building works upstairs, I apologise. I missed the decibel level that was revised or quoted.
Okay, I'm sure that can be accommodated, Mr. Weaver.
It was 15 decibels.
15
above background.
Above
1.5, yeah.
So what is that in actual decibels? I'm only allowed down the
15 decibels. It's 1.5 decibels above background.
Above background.
So whatever the background noise, is 15 decibels above that.
And that will ensure that we won't hear the noise, because it doesn't mean an awful lot to me, but
that is a minimum that's required. Yes, I mean that is what's required.
Right. Okay. I will leave that to Mr. Chadwick to evaluate, as he's more of favour with these matters than I am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chadwick. Your opportunity to ask questions.
Yes, I have two relating to the sale of alcohol. Firstly, am I correct in understanding that off sales of alcohol, i.e. you can buy a bottle of wine and take it out, will be permitted?
No, but I'm sure Mr. Weaver will assist you. Go on, Mr. Weaver.
There's no off. We have no off sales in it.
No, it's just for on sales only, Mr. Chadwick. So if you're on the premise, you can buy something, but you have to consume it there. You can't buy something and walk away with it.
Thank you. And secondly, I've been told in my discussions that although this is a restaurant and the majority of the customers are expected to be ordering drink with a meal, that the public will be able to walk in and buy a drink and sit on the terrace. Have I understood that correctly?
Mr. Weaver?
Yes, you haven't. They can buy a drink, yes.
Good, thank you. I'll deal with it when I come to my representation.
Okay, thank you very much. So, and also we now have our licensing officer. Do you have any questions for the applicant, Mrs. Jardin?
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I was just going back to my question, which I asked. I haven't got an answer yet from the legal advisor, so we'll come to that in just a moment, because poor Mr. Parr keeps dropping in and out. So moving on then, it's now an opportunity. We don't have any responsible authorities, but we do have our other persons or our objectors, and they now have an opportunity to put forward their representations. So I'll start with Mrs. Barbara Gomez del Olmo. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. You have the floor.
Yes, no, that's excellent. Thank you very much. So I live in Hintonwood, Eastcliff, Bournemouth. Okay, I apologise in advance for any noise because there's intermittent building work upstairs. So basically, I totally share Mr. Chadwick's concerns, which I know he's going to raise after me, which represents the views of many in ours and other apartments on the East Overcliff. And our apartments are normally very quiet and you can hear a pin drop. So any noise, whether unexpected or extreme, is an annoying intrusion. As an example to attend this meeting, I wish to play a 29-second video of the music which seriously disturbed many of us along the Eastcliff on the evening of the 1st of May. It was from an event on the pier, which is unconnected with the events team, but it lasted continuously for 7 hours from 3 till 10 p.m. A sound meter in our block registered the noise level at 63 to 66 decibels, which I thought was the same range proposed for the Marquee. I'm not clear what plus 15, how that refers to this 65. And for shorter periods, the music of this event reached 68 or even 70 decibels. So with your permission, I'm going to just play this very quickly. And again, I hope we're not interrupted.
Okay, just before you do, this is all very, it's specific, isn't it, to what volume you recorded it and what volume you're playing it. So it's difficult. We will listen to it. I would just ask other parties if they're content. I think that's only fair. Firstly, my subcommittee members, are you content that we listen to this evidence?
Yes, but as you say, sorry, yes, Chair, but as you say, the level is difficult to gauge.
Yeah.
Based on a virtual meeting, based on a recording.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, what we will do is, I think we will listen to it, but we'll have to be mindful that it may not have an awful lot of influence because, you know, of the volume at which it could be played and listened to in a virtual meeting. Councillor Johnson, are you content?
I am indeed, Chair. Also, please indulge my lack of a camera. My Wi-Fi is slowed right down for some reason.
Don't worry, that's fine, Councillor Johnson. And other parties, are you content that this is played? Mr. Weaver and Mrs. Wildman.
I'm content.
And Mrs. Jardim?
Yes, I'm content.
And Mr. Chadwick, are you content this is played?
Yes.
Okay then, so as I said, we'll take it for what it is, but as I say, it's not an awful lot of inference I think we can take because of how it may have been recorded. But fire away.
I can only assure you it was taken from my balcony. And anything probably was louder than this, but obviously points. I hope we're not in.
Thank you.
I've just taken it a bit louder. Right, I'm sorry. It didn't sound very loud as I played it. So, but I'm sure you could hear that repetitive bass, if nothing else.
To be absolutely honest with you, I could hear just like a white noise. I couldn't hear anything else. But right. We take it for the intent in which you want us to understand it, and we'll accept it as part of your presentation. Okay.
And that video is available to Helen Wildman and
okay. Thank you.
Okay. So just so basically, we're appealing for lower noise limits and earlier end times, which you have made some compromise on. Many of us go to bed before 11 o'clock. Even younger people who, at the meeting we attended, there was a young couple, and they were actually very distressed at the amount of noise, the fact that they go to bed earlier than 11 o'clock. No one wants to stop people from enjoying themselves, but is there a need for such loud noise? I retire to go to bed early to relax and unwind. Noise disturbance makes my blood boil. I can end up not sleeping well for days. I'd also like to point out that an individual trying to sleep hears the noise peaks, not the end, and that loud bass beat is inescapable. I would like to thank Helen Wildman and John Weaver of the Destination and Events teams for their cooperation so far and assurances that we will not be disturbed. Yeah, of course, this applies to all events on the beachfront. We're prepared for the air show and the fireworks. We of course make a concession for these, so that we do accept. A fair balance between the commercial interest of the operator and the peace of the residents should include conditions in the licence of lower noise limit and an earlier end time. And that obviously, it just applies to any licences that affect the beachfront. And can I please press for the future licensing application notices relating to the Overcliff and beachfront to be placed in prominent, for example, by the St Peter's roundabout bus stops. Few of us were aware of recent notices and do not walk on that section of the beachfront, especially since the lifts have been damaged and it's a steep return walk. So basically, that's my representation. And thank you for listening. And we hope the views of the residents are acted upon.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So now it's your opportunity. I've got a blowback. If somebody could turn the mic off, please. Are we all muted? We are. Right, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Mrs. Gomez de Olmo. Now we have Mr. Chadwick. And do you have any questions for Mr. Weaver?
I'm sorry, Chair, please.
I'm sorry, it's time for your presentation. I do beg your pardon. interference has put back my list. So, Mr. Chadwick, it's time for you to put your presentation now. You have the floor.
Thank you. This committee has to balance the commercial benefits a license will give to the operator against the need to avoid harm to the quiet enjoyment of residents' homes. Potential nuisances can arise from music, from machinery, from smells from cooking, and from disruptive behaviour as customers leave the premises. The area between Bournemouth and Boston Piers is largely residential. There are 22 blocks of flats, no commercial premises, 10 hotels, but there, of course, they are occupied by people who also need a quiet night's sleep. The blocks of flats are very large, very high, so that they're very large, lots of flats, many residents. The Marquee site is no further from the nearest flats than the width of a dual carriageway when measured horizontally. The vertical drop does make a difference. In particular, it will shield those walking along the cliff top from noise from below. But most of the blocks of flats are tall and sound will spread out to those higher levels. And some of the flats on the higher levels will have a direct line of sight to the location and therefore also a direct line of sound waves. Now, last year, the committee granted a number of licenses for somewhat similar operations on the beach in this area. But the way the committee concluded that the balance should be struck between the interest of residents and those of the operators was to limit the number of events that could take place to 5 in each calendar year. It does disturb us greatly that the goal of this new application seems to be to bypass that 5 limit. The operator should abide by last year's decision, and the Licence Committee should not agree to abandon it so soon. There are 2 uses proposed for the Marquee, a restaurant with also a bar selling alcohol as has just been described, and events or functions. The operator has stated to us in discussions that on the days when the Marquee is to be used as a restaurant, there will be music, but it will be confined to background music. Now, other restaurants on the beach play music at a much louder volume than the background music of most indoor restaurants. So residents are concerned about what will actually happen, especially as recorded music, as we understand it, will continue to be licensed until 11 p.m. That's an hour later than was permitted in last year's licenses and an hour later than is permitted for the other beach restaurants. We've already just touched on the fact that there is to be a bar for the sale of alcohol, and it does trouble us that this really isn't a restaurant. This is a bar with food attached, and that we don't think it's appropriate for these extra licensing hours to be permitted in those circumstances. I'm pleased to hear that there isn't going to be any opportunity for off sales. As to the event or function days, we're not, I repeat what Mrs. Gomez said, we are not objecting in any way to anything that happens on the 4 airshow days. Our concern is the 31 days of August. Mr. Weaver referred to 8 days when there is to be unrestricted events or functions. But as we understand it, there will also be 4 days when the function will be permitted to have a live musician. So if you take the 8 and the 4, that's 12 days out of 31, not quite 50%, but a very substantial proportion of the number of days. We've moved away from the 65 decibels that was in the original draft, and we're very grateful for that, because that breached the recommendations of the Noise Council, the body comprising the Institutes of Environmental Health and Acoustics. The limit of 15 above background noise will need to be carefully considered, because it's important that it's the background noise on an autumn or spring day at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, not the noise level that can happen from beach activities other than the restaurants. The events team has shown a degree of cooperation on this, and we hope that that will continue. And we would certainly be disturbed if after 10 p.m. it's possible to hear any sort of noise inside a residence with the windows open. I don't want to take up more of your time by discussing in great detail the other potential noise sources, but I am troubled that I imagine a great deal of electricity will be consumed, and that will be created by a diesel engine generator, and I haven't heard any explanation of what level that would be permitted. And on behalf of the residents of Albany, I want to stress the impact of 220 event guests leaving at the same time, many of them walking up the zigzag to outside the Albany, and then, as you will know, there is a footpath along the east side of that building. Noise from that has been troublesome over the years, and it does bother us that 12 extra days of that noise is going to be distressing. So to sum up, we see no justification for there to be a change from what was agreed last year. There shouldn't be an increase in the number of licenses that existed last year. So we ask that this application is refused, and that whatever activity is planned should be within the terms of the previous licenses. If the committee rejects that request, we ask that any license granted should have the same conditions as those granted last year as regards closing time, particularly 10 p.m. We ask that the committee bears in mind that the premises are to be a marquee with canvas sides. We've been told those canvas sides will be kept open as long as possible on days when the weather is fine, so there isn't going to be any noise containing features. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chadwick. There's a few things in there which I think I'd like to comment on to assist you, and also to ask, I think, Mr. Weaver if he could also assist, just to give you information. It may be assurance, it may just be factual information. But the first one, actually, I'll ask with regard to, I'll ask our legal advisor, recorded music up until 11. That is a standard. Could you please explain that? Are you with us, Mr. Parr?
Yeah, yes, I'm with you. No, it's not a general standard. It's each licensing committee will deal with each premises on its own basis.
After you would need to apply for a license for music after 11 o'clock, but not up until.
So you need the music license anyway.
Yes, indeed, and that's in train. So there's no further license needs to be applied for.
No.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to confirm for
Yeah.
Mr. Chadwick. The other matter is, can we have an explanation? Can we turn our mics off, please? Everybody on mute. Thank you. Generators, Mr. Weaver, can you assist Mr. Chadwick with regard to how they'll be dealt with, if indeed there are to be any? Thank you.
Yes, Chair. There is one generator. It will be a super silence generator. So it's a very low volume generator that we've used. It's conventional for this type of operation where we don't have mains supply, but there will be one super silence generator.
So that rather speaks for itself, super silence, right? Well, I hope that gives some assurance. The other matter being, Mr. Chadwick is suggesting if 220 people leave the event at the same time, could we please have advice and obviously your protocols for ensuring that people don't do that? Thank you.
Chair, so when there is a private function, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chadwick, it's concerning everybody leaving at the same time for an event. We have to prepare for every event. We have to prepare a specific plan, which includes egress out of the site. So as you probably heard last hearing when we talked about another event, we have to determine determining the type of event, the audience profile of that event, and then we'd have to put in appropriate measures to ensure that there is egress and access out in a quiet behaviour. That may include some forms of stewarding that takes in place, a reminder to those people concerned as well that they to consider others, also to look at the opportunity to for example, to provide taxi operation so that the taxis can come up to the site and disperse. A lot of people want taxis. Those are sort of measures that we would put in place, but we would look at on a case-by-case basis in terms of those particular functions. Just to reiterate, it is primarily an eating establishment. It is a restaurant offer, and we would expect that people would be slowly on other days at those times. There'll be a slow dispersal rather than everybody leaving at the same time, which does generally happen, in my view, my experience, within a restaurant offer. Okay, that's very, very helpful. I'm going to go back now with regard to the questions I raised for, if you're with us, Mr. Parr, you're online. Are you with us in the room, or have you gone again?
No, I'm still here.
You're here, Mr. Parr. With regard to the shots, and that under written agreement is received by Dorset Police, no shots or shooters should be available for the purchase of the event. Could you please explain that so that we have clear confirmation as to exactly what that means? Thank you.
Yes, what the police are trying to do there is impose what is in effect a condition on the licence. The police cannot do that. They can agree that with the applicant, but it would be for the committee to decide whether or not that is made as a condition of the licence.
Yes, but it's not for the police, obviously, to make
No, they cannot make at all any conditions imposed upon licensee outside of the licence, which is agreed by the committee. Okay, then, so it does look as if that has been a condition which has been, it comes from the applicant to say that the applicant would check everything with the police. So I don't know if the applicant wants to offer a different condition there, or remove the condition, or amend it in any way. But I'll leave that as a matter for you to think about, Mr. Weaver. But as it stands, it can't stand in that particular format. Thank you for that. And the other question, or the same question, was, I think we need to be quite clear about 15 decibels above background noise. I would imagine the background noise during the day would be a little more than the background noise on perhaps a quieter evening, but it will be the actual background noise. It won't be a guesstimate as to, on a quiet winter's evening, as to the noise that might be heard then to perhaps a noisier buckets and spades afternoon with the children out and ice creams background noise, and of course the radios and whatever else is happening on the beach, because it's not just the noise of the event. So could I please have a clear explanation, Mr. Weaver, as to your interpretation, clear definition of 15 decibels above background noise? Thank you.
Yes, Chair. In terms of discussions with our environmental health officer, he has advised that it's 15 decibels above the background noise at that time. That's what he said. That's what we've in discussions with him, and in discussion with Mr. Chadwick, is what we're looking at. The most important thing, whatever decibel levels it is that if there are any issues around noise, you know, there is a response from us or from the events team to assess that. Okay. But that's the description.
The concern there for Mr. Chadwick, and certainly for me, and I imagine for my subcommittee members as well, is if the background noise is very, very, very loud, and you're allowed 15 decibels over and above that, when is there a cut-off? When does it become where it gets to a stage where actually it isn't acceptable? Because if the background, I have no idea about decibels, forgive me, but if the background noise is 80 decibels and you're allowed 15 above that, and it puts it over and above that which is allowed, so where are the checks and balances in place for that? It's a scenario. I'm not saying it would happen, we don't know, that's the risk element, but what would your comments be on that? Thank you.
My comment goes back to, there has to be, we can certainly go back to environmental health and ask that. I would suggest it's probably, I'm not an expert and I can't say it here, but it's going to be when it gets to that point where it's 65 dB to the nearest dwelling, it goes above that point. However, add a caveat to that, I'm not an expert. We'd have to go back to our environmental health officer. The most important thing to us is that if people are being, as I said, are feeling treated, they can contact us and we can make that assessment. I would have to go back and take that back. But that's the same for any, if I'm right, that would be for the same for any premises, with those conditions. It applies right away across BCP. So that would be my comment on that. As I said, I'm not an expert.
Yeah, 65 decibels being the max. Mrs. Wildman, you've got your hand up. I'm hoping you can assist us. Please speak. You have the floor.
That was just. Thank you, Chair. That it was just to confirm that it was myself that was speaking to environmental health on this. So the 15 above background noise is to a maximum of 65, so it wouldn't go over 5. So if the background noise was 50, then the 15 would be 65. If the background was 40, it'd be 15 over that. Does that clarify it?
Yes, it does. And is that made clear in the operating schedule?
Yes.
It is, right, okay. That was just for Mr. Chadwick's benefit there. So because I can understand Mr. Chadwick would be most concerned if it was 15 yes. above background noise, and the background noise is 170, you know. So it's clear there for Mr. Chadwick's purposes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have our objectors have put forward their representations. So now we've got questions of other persons. Members, do you have any questions for our objectors? Councillor Johnson.
No, Chair, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hadley?
Well, I suppose it's not a question, but as a physicist, I do understand decibels. And
good. Take the floor. Take the floor. Please help us out.
And as it goes up, it redoubles. You know, an increase is proportionate. But the level of 70 decibels is a vacuum cleaner. The level of 75 is a dishwasher. So it's interesting that I suppose that the experience 65 decibels was mentioned as being a reading that on one of your blocks, and it's great that you've got that sound monitoring to be able to see what it's like. But I'm just a bit concerned that, well, I'm reassured, I suppose, that the 65 decibels, as well as the plus 15, because I saw the plus 15, and you know that could be interpreted in lots of ways. Not least if the generator was taken as part of the background, then that gives more latitude. So I'm more content with a hard stop, a definite figure, rather than a plus 15. Not least because it allows you to monitor it. Thank you.
Yes, I'm glad we were able to get to the bottom of that. That made absolute sense to clarify that. Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. So do we have any questions of our objectors from Mr. Weaver, or any points of clarifications to be assisted with?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, just to re-emphasise, Mr. Chadwick, and I know also with other objectors, is that we're not cavalier with our approach in terms of this operation. It is not our intent, it never would be our intent to turn it into a drinking establishment, but it is our intent that it is a restaurant, primarily a restaurant offer, where people can obviously come in and drink. It is not there to turn into any form of drinking den. Hence the reason, I think one of the most important things is that we have consulted with the police. And the police put in the conditions of put in conditions about drinking and meals, and they were satisfied because of our history and because of our reputation that we were responsible to be able to put that condition in. So I think that's a very important point to make.
Okay, thank you very much. Just one moment. Michelle, are you with us?
I am, Chair, yes.
Could I just, with regard to the individual who's wishing to join to speak, could I just be advised on that?
I've just checked the speakers list. I haven't been advised that that person has made a representation or is in fact detailed on the list of speakers.
And this is the ward councillor?
Yes, I've not, unless Tanya can clarify, I have not been advised that the ward councillor wishes to speak on this application.
Okay.
I think
I will just have a quick check, but my understanding is the same as yours, Michelle, but just bear me 2
Yeah, I do have her down to speak on the second application. I don't know if she's got a little bit confused.
I mean, Councillor.
Oh, sorry, I've just had
it. She says that she just wants to observe. Is that correct?
Yes, in that case, we wouldn't be letting her into the meeting. She would be able to
No,
review.
no, if Councillor Fowler does want to observe, could we advise her kindly to tune into YouTube with the deepest of respect, if it's just for observational purposes. I'm sorry she missed the boat there on being able to submit on behalf, obviously, of her residents, but we do have some required processes, and unfortunately they've been missed. But I think that our two objectors have covered those elements extremely well. I don't think there would be much more that the councillor would have been able to add. So my apologies that she's missed the boat in that regard, but she can join through YouTube if she wants to observe. Thank you very much. Mrs. Wildman, do you have any questions of our objectors?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Jardim, do you have any questions of our objectors?
No, thank you, Chair.
Right, okay. So thank you very much. We now have an opportunity for all parties to give them the opportunity to sum up. If you want to add anything to your previous submissions, please feel free. We want to hear whatever you've got to say. So we start with the party who spoke last to go first. So we'll start with our objectors, start with Mrs. Gomez de Olmo. You have the floor.
Well, thank you for listening to all our concerns. And I just want to repeat that, you know, it's very, very quiet where we live. And when we hear this noise, which is not going to necessarily just be from this marquee, I'm taking your comments on board that you said, you know, it should not prove any intrusion to ourselves, although the 65 decibel level does concern me, because that was the noise that we got from the here event on the 1st of May. But, you know, providing we can continue to have quiet enjoyment of our flats and I can get my sleep and retire, you know, at 9 or 10 p.m. without a constant bass beat, then I'm very happy for people to enjoy themselves. So please, a plea for a quiet relaxation of our flats, which is, you know, as I say, it's deadly quiet here at the moment, apart from the intrusion upstairs. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gomez. Peter Chadwick, you have your hand up, but I think it's the legacy hand, Mr. Chadwick, is it?
It was because I wanted to try and help you, Chair, about the 11 p.m. deadline on music. I suspect you may have been thinking about the legislation called the Live Music Act of 2012, which made it impractical or impossible for a local authority to impose in a license a deadline for the playing of music of earlier than 11 p.m. But that, my understanding of that legislation is that it applies only to small premises. This marquee has a capacity of 220, and therefore the Act does not apply to it. And it is within the power of the council to impose a 10 p.m. limit on music in this particular license. Clearly, you may wish to check that with your legal advisors, but that is what I think the position is.
No, I'm fully cognizant of the matter. Thank you, Mr. Chadwick. But thank you for that confirmation. Yes. It's extremely kind of you. If you'd like to carry on and give us your summary, please.
Yes, the only point I want to make in the summary is to repeat that last year the decision of the council was that to balance the needs of residents and those of the operator, the number of events should be limited to 5. I haven't heard anything this morning to explain why that should now go up to 12, and I don't think it should. I think a limit of 5 events, functions, whatever you call them, in this marquee should be a limit. And also, I really think it should count along the beach as a whole. It does seem unsatisfactory that you can have 5 in one premises and 5 in another premises when the premises are so close together. Thank you.
Okay, I think we were quite clear from Mr. Weaver that this isn't an events application. This is a premises application, so it's all happening within the same area. But Mr. Weaver, I think it only fair to Mr. Chadwick if you'd like to expand on that, just for assurance, please. And if you could turn your microphone off, please, Mr. Chadwick, then we don't get any blowback. Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
So as I said, we actually took advice on this particular application, and because the previous application, I know this is, we have had these discussions with Mr. Chadwick, was around events, as in 1 day, 2 day events, community type of events. That was the maximum number. This is around a specific application to run a premise licensed operation, and we're looking at functions within that licensed operation, as would be any other licensed operation, whether it's indoors or outdoors, that has a restaurant offer and has a function. So that's the difference. And as we said, this license will operate for that month, and no other licenses will apply that are currently, or applies currently on there. So we are looking for a maximum, as I said, we're looking for a maximum of 8 of these functions. So that is the explanation. And again, we said for each one, we've put in some, I think I'm quite confident to say we put in some pretty robust measures, which I don't think many other operators would have to do. You know, for every function, we have to put in a plan that has to be approved by the police. There aren't that many places that you can go to where you have to actually get an agreement to have a private function in your premise. So I think we've looked at that and been pretty rigorous in what we're doing here. And really, we want this to be a success, as we've said, for us and also for local people. So it's in our interest to do that.
Thank you very much. I hope that helps, Mr. Chadwick. Thank you very much for your summary. Mr. Weaver, it's your opportunity now to summarise. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I sort of almost semi-summarised there in response to Mr. Chadwick. I hope that the residents realise that we have an operator who is a very experienced operator. We are working with responsible authorities who are happy with the professional way and responsible way that we run an operation. This is for a limited period, and we really feel we have a dedicated backup as well, as we explained. In response, by the way, to the issues around the noise interference that was made, that has been taken up immediately. This is in terms of the peer, and matters have been taken forward. So as a team, it shows how responsive we are in terms of dealing with the issues of this nature. I think really that is all I want to sum up, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Mrs. Wildman, did you have anything to add?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Wildman. And last but by no means least, Mrs. Jardine, did you have anything to add?
No, I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our hearing concluded. And at the end of the meeting of this subcommittee, we will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and the clerk to deliberate on your matter. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be provided within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held, in accordance with the regulations, and that is today, Wednesday, May the 11th. And the notification decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. And Mr. Parr, if you'd kindly advise us with regard to that right of appeal. Thank you. I hope. Mr. Parr?
Sorry about that. Yes, you have a right to appeal against the committee's decision from the date the decision is issued, and it's 21 days appeal to the Magistrates' Court.
Thank you very much indeed. So thank you very much for attending, everybody, especially our objectors and our applicants. And thank you very much for your contributions. We will go away and we will deliberate very carefully on your matter, and you will hear very soon with regard to our decision. So I will now conclude the meeting, and I'm going to ask for a short adjournment just as we prepare for the next. And subcommittee members and officers, we will convene again at 11:15 if that's convenient. And I will say goodbye to everybody else, and thank you so much for your attention today. Goodbye and thank you. Thank you, and good morning and welcome back to today's meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. And we now move on to our second substantive, which is item 6, which is Conroy's Bar, 33 C Road, Boscombe, Bournemouth, BH51DH. And an application to vary the premise licence has been received for the premises known as Conroy's Bar. And this matter is brought before the Licensing Subcommittee for determination. And introductions, I'd like to please ask our subcommittee members if they'd like to introduce themselves and state their ward. So Councillor Hadley.
My name is Councillor Andy Hadley. And I'm obviously a member of the subcommittee today.
Thank you very much. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Toby Johnson, ward member for Alderney and Bourne Valley.
Thank you very much. And my name is Councillor Judes Butt. I'm chairman of the Licensing Committee, and I'm also chair of this subcommittee for the purposes of today's business. And my ward is Creekmore, Hilborn and Waterloo. We have our 2 reserve members with us, I hope. Are they with us, Michelle, or not?
No, Madam Chair, they are available should we need them.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we now move on and thank them very much for turning up as reserves to cover. Mrs. Jardim.
Hello, yes. Tanya Jardim, licensing officer.
Okay, and Mr. Parr. Mr. Parr, are you there?
Chair, it looks as though his connection has dropped out.
Okay. Well, Mr. Alan Parr is our legal advisor and he's having a little trouble with his connections, but I'm sure he'll be back with us. So, Mrs. Cutler, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, that's me. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Cutler and I'm the clerk to the Licensing Committee this morning. Thank you.
And Mr. Day?
I'm Philip Day from Lacey Solicitors and I'm here representing Mrs. Connie O'Gormley and Mr. Royston Thorne, who are the proposed, the DPS and licence holder respectively, who are also with us.
Okay, so I shall not ask them to introduce themselves, but just to say a very good morning to you, Mrs. O'Gormley, and to Mr. Royston, and your DPS and joint owner and second joint owner. So Sergeant Gareth Gosling.
Good morning, Chair. Sergeant Gareth Gosling from Dorset Police's Drug and Alcohol Harm Reduction Team, and I'm joined today by Louise Busfield, Licensing Officer for the Boscombe and East Bournemouth area.
Thank you for those dual introductions. And Mr. Makowitz.
Hello, I'm one of the residents who lives in flat 2, 33 C Road, just above the bar.
Thank you, Mr. Makowitz. And Councillor Filer.
Yes, I'm here. I'm a local councillor for Eastcliff and Springbourne, which abuts Boscombe. I live in Boscombe, and I'm here representing Councillor Jane Kelly, who had to go to a funeral today.
Thank you very much for attending. It's extremely kind of you, Councillor Filer. And Mr. Hughes.
Yep, I'm a neighbour, live directly across the road from Conroy Bar. I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So just before we go on, a reminder that Mr. Paul Barker, who is ECP&S, has withdrawn his representation following successful mediation with the applicant, and that we also have Mrs. Mary Larkham, who is objecting. She can't attend today, but she submitted a written objection, which I will read out at the appropriate time, which we will do when we come to it. So, in addition to everybody here today, we do have Democratic Services officers who are providing technical support in the meeting, but will not be taking part in the meeting. So just to check that everybody's given notice of their intention to speak and have been identified, and anybody who wishes to withdraw their representation or wishes not to speak has been identified. So are we all content? We are. So then I'll go now through our procedure, and our procedure is such that our licensing officer will present the report. The applicant will make their application. Questions of the applicant by all party and members of the subcommittee will go first. Our responsible authorities and other persons will then make their representations. And questions of the responsible authorities and other persons will then be put, and the members of the committee are to go first. All parties are then given the opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first, and the hearing will then conclude. And the subcommittee will deliberate in private with our legal advisor and our clerk. A notification of subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held in accordance with the regulations, which is today, 11th of May, Wednesday. And the notification decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate, and I shall ask our advisor at the time to give that information. So could I just ask, please, that everybody is content that we are going to go through that procedure and that you're all happy with it. So Mrs. Jardim, are you content?
I am content, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parr?
Content.
Are you with us? Bless you. Mr. Day?
I'm content, ma'am.
Thank you. Mrs. O'Gormley?
I'm content.
Thank you. Mr. Thorne?
I'm content.
Sergeant Gosling?
Yes, both myself and Louise are content. Thank you.
Okay, you're speaking for Louise, a brave man. Mr. Makowitz?
I'm content.
I'm sorry, I will get that right. Miss Makowitz. I do.
That's okay, no problem.
You're clearly a miss, and I keep calling you Mr. I do apologise. Councillor Filer?
Yes, I'm happy, Chairman, but I will have to, a little bit later than we planned, and I will have to leave for another meeting within 20 minutes. Is that going to fit in with your time scale?
We shall do as best we can, Councillor Filer, but the meeting will just take its course. Thank you. And Mr. Hughes?
Yeah, I'm content.
Okay, thank you very much. So then we move to our substantive report, and we'll ask Mrs. Jardim if she would kindly present her report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So the matter before you today is to consider an application to vary the premises licence at Conroy's Bar, formerly known as Corner Cafe 33, situated at 33 Sea Road in Boscombe. Conroy's Bar Limited applied to transfer the premises licence into their name on the 15th of March 2022, and subsequently a variation application was submitted by Mr. Philip Day of Lacey Solicitors on behalf of Conroy's Bar Limited. The premises licence currently permits late night refreshments Thursday to Saturday from 2300 to 0100 hours, and the supply of alcohol Sunday to Wednesday 1000 to 2300 hours, and Thursday to Saturday 1000 to 0100 hours. Alcohol is to be sold as an ancillary.
Sorry, Mr. Jardim, could we just, I'm so sorry to butt in, you're in full flow. Okay. Somebody has their mic on. Can we please have all mics muted, because I'm getting terrible feedback? Thank you. We could all mute our mics. Thank you.
The usual. Yeah, the usual is not this.
Apologies. Where would you like me to continue from?
If you'd like to start, I missed a whole paragraph, so if you'd go back to the whole paragraph, thank you, it's kind of you.
Apologies. That's fine. So the premises licence currently permits late night refreshments Thursday to Saturday from 2300 to 0100 hours, and the supply of alcohol Monday to Wednesday 1000 to 2300 hours, and Thursday to Saturday 1000 to 0100 hours. Alcohol is to be sold as an ancillary to food prepared and served on or delivered from the premises. The application made is to add live and recorded music to the licence on Thursdays 2300 to 0100 hours, and Friday and Saturday, and on New Year's Eve and Sundays immediately preceding a bank holiday Monday 2300 to 0200 hours. And further to extend the hours for the supply of alcohol Sunday to Wednesday 0800 to 2300 hours, Thursday 0800 to 0100 hours, and Friday and Saturday, and on New Year's Eve and Sundays immediately preceding a bank holiday Monday 0800 to 0100 hours. The application additionally requests to extend the hours for late night refreshments on Thursday until 0100 hours, and on Friday and Saturdays, and on New Year's Eve and Sundays immediately preceding the bank holiday Monday until 0200 hours. No changes to the current licence conditions have been proposed. The licensing office received 11 representations against the application from other persons, and also representations from Environmental Health and also Police, on the grounds that the application would undermine the licensing objectives. Mediation took place between the applicant's solicitor and the Environmental Health Officer, which resulted in the condition being agreed and the representation subsequently being withdrawn. The condition reads as follows: all or any live or recorded music provided as regulated entertainment is played through a noise limiting device the levels of which are to be agreed with officers from environmental health. We received no further representations from any other responsible authorities and received 7 representations in support of the application. The Licence Office were informed by Dorset Police that during various visits to the premises, officers witnessed that the premises were in breach of their licence conditions. These were relating to the supply of alcohol to customers without food, lack of training and training records, and also the operation of the CCTV system. Warnings were issued, and the licence holder and their legal representative have been made aware of the conditions of their licence and the consequences of not adhering to these. Members are asked to consider whether to grant this application, and should the licence be granted and the applicants fail to operate in accordance with their licence and any conditions attached to it, they will be aware that any responsible authorities or interested parties may request a review of the licence at any time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have questions on points of fact now from the members. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I do have one question. So with the extension of the hours of alcohol sale, does that mean that the sale of food will remain up until the 1 o'clock closing of the hours?
As it stands, because that condition has not been requested to be removed, yes, there is a condition that it is run as a restaurant.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hadley?
Yes, thank you. I had the same question and it's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Michelle, I'm having trouble with my chair's chat. Could you re-invite me back, please? It seems to have disappeared. I'd be grateful because I also have the updates there from Mr. Day. Thank you very much. Questions on points of fact?
I don't have any questions on points of fact, but matters have advanced further this morning, which you may or may not be aware of. Certainly,
yes, I am aware of that, and this is what I'd like you to raise. But I'm just getting into my chair's chat so that those matters. Nope, that's not it at all. Was very kindly sent on the chair's chat all your amendments, Mr. Day, which I were obviously quite happy for you to introduce, but because obviously the consideration is not quite for the report that we received from Mrs. Jardine, but I felt it only right that she put her report forward and then you amend her report as appropriate. And I'm just trying to find, no, I cannot find it at all. So what I will do then is I will ask you, Mr. Day, when you make your application as to exactly what you're applying for with regard to all your amendments. Is that okay?
More than happy with that, ma'am. I'm your hands as to process.
Thank you very much. So, Mrs. O'Gormley, do you have any questions on points of fact?
I don't at this stage, no.
Thank you. And Mr. Thorne, do you have any questions on point of fact?
No, not at all at this moment.
Okay, and bearing in mind those changes of which you will also be aware of, Sergeant Gosling and Mrs. Busfield, with regard to changes which have been agreed to be made, do you have any questions on points of fact?
No, I don't, Chair. And
it's a little ambiguous, I apologise, but it's just when, with the deepest of respect, we get very late notification from Mr. Day. I'm sure he had his reasons, but we have to jiggle a bit as to putting this information before the subcommittee. Mr. Makowitz, do you have any questions on points of fact? Mr. Makowitz, Ms. Makowitz, do you have any questions on points of fact?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I said no, not at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Filer.
No, I don't have any questions on fact at all.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Hughes?
No, no questions.
Okay, you'll have to forgive us. Clearly, the representation which was put forward by our licensing officer is exactly that, and she's done exactly the correct thing to put that forward. There have been extremely late changes, basically while we were waiting in the lobby for the meeting. Some changes came through from Mr. Day, which he's negotiated with the responsible authority being the police. So that being the case, we'll ask you now, Mr. Day, if you could clearly put forward your application, because it has varied to such extent that it's very unlike the application I think that was before us, but we'd be grateful if you take us through it so that we all have a full understanding of it. Thank you, Mr. Day, you have the floor.
Ma'am, if I can just explain how this has come about. You will have hopefully received a couple of days ago a fairly long response to the representations from me, with photographs of the premises and with various comments, principally by Ms. O'Gormley, with regard to the representations that have been made initially by the police and by various members of the public. I had commented in that response and included an exchange of emails with Louise Busfield, where I was waiting for further additional evidence from the police. On Monday, that had not been forthcoming, so I submitted the response. In actual fact, yesterday, we received additional evidence from the police, and at the earliest opportunity, I took further instructions from my clients who needed a little time to consider their position, but then instructed me further this morning. In the light of that additional information, we look to amend the application as follows. Firstly, that the application to vary the hours for the permitted hours for the sale of alcohol and provision of late night refreshment goes away. In other words, that there's no change to those permitted hours.
So they stay then 10 till to 2300, which is Sunday to Wednesday, and Friday to Saturday is 10 till midnight. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Same applies for late night refreshment.
And that's just for the purposes for the subcommittee. That is from 2300 hours to 100 hours, yes?
Yes, 1 a.m. Thursday, Friday, Saturday only. The opening hours of the premises, we do propose to continue with the application to amend the start time to 8 a.m. instead of 10 a.m. But alcohol would not be sold between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. That's simply to allow the premises to provide breakfast. The closing times to remain as they are. So in other words, 11 p.m. Sundays through to Wednesdays, and then on Thursday, Friday and Saturdays until 1 a.m.
Okay.
Right. With regard to regulated entertainment, and this is live and recorded music only, we wish to amend the application so that the regulated entertainment would only be provided on Thursday, Friday and Saturday from 11 p.m. until midnight. In other words, it would end at the same time as the sale of alcohol on those 3 days. I make the point, as I'm sure you and your colleagues would be aware, but maybe not members of the public, that between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m, under the provisions of the Live Music Act.
Yes, we've rather had this to death, actually, Mr. Day. We had it in the previous matter, so the subcommittee members are perfectly aware. It's kind of you. Thank you. Move on.
Yes. Save that in this case, Barn, it wouldn't be from 8 a.m. Because the sale of alcohol would only be permitted from 10 a.m. So it'd be 10 a.m. until 11 p.m.
Right.
We also now propose some additional conditions. The first of those is that live and recorded music provided as regulated entertainment be in the basement only and not on the ground floor of the premises. Obviously, the noise limiter condition that has already been referred to by Mrs. Jardim and agreed with the Environmental Health Officer. And then an additional condition that whenever live or recorded music is provided after 11 p.m, in other words, other than under the Live Music Act, at least one SIA registered door supervisor to be deployed from 2200 hours, in other words, 10 p.m, until the premises close and all customers have dispersed from the immediate area. And that a minimum of 4 tables and 8 chairs will be available for use by customers in the basement area throughout.
Okay.
Now, I have to say that I haven't actually received formal confirmation from the police that that is agreed, but that is the proposed amendment. Now, Ma'am, can I perhaps just take the opportunity of referring you to the guidance for the benefit of Councillor Filer and members of the public who are here in particular. And this is paragraph 9.32 of the guidance. And what it says is this: responsible authorities should try to conclude any discussions with the applicant in good time for the hearing. The 2005 hearing regulations permit licensing authorities to extend a time limit provided for by those regulations for a specified period where it considers this to be necessary in the public interest. For example, if the application is amended at the last moment, which is exactly what we have here, the licensing committee should consider giving other persons time to address the revised application before the hearing commences. And then where the authority, if you are minded to do that, has extended the time limit, it must forthwith give a notice to the parties involved stating the period of the extension and the reasons for it. And I'm sure, of course, that you will be familiar with paragraph 9.12 of the guidance, which talks about responsible authorities being an expert in their fields. And it says, for example, the police have a key role in managing the nighttime economy and should have good working relationships with those operating their local area. The police should therefore be the licensing authority's main source of advice on matters relating to the promotion of the crime and disorder licensing objectives, etc. I'm going to pause there, if I may, because, as you rightly say, the application has been changed very substantially. All that you would need to consider now is whether to allow the premises to open at 8 AM without any form of licensable activity. I mean, to be perfectly honest, if that was the only thing, that could have been dealt with under a minor variation. And then to decide whether or not to allow the premises to provide live and or recorded music for an hour on Thursday, Fridays and Saturdays from 11 until midnight, subject to the conditions that we have proposed. I pause there because I don't want to take up a huge amount of the committee's time if those who are here are content to withdraw their representations if that is now agreed.
We'll get to that point, Mr. Day. Thank you very much. I think firstly, though, I need to say to all applicants and also to responsible authorities, it's very much up to you to get your act together. And we're getting this an awful lot in subcommittees where we're getting very, very late applications and very, very late information from all parties. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody in particular. I know how difficult it is for you, but I really would ask for the smooth running of this subcommittee to ensure that business does continue and that we do have a presumption to grant, that we do actually get on with it. You're not helping. So if you could please try and be much more timely in all the things that you're required to do under whatever particular act it might be. And I must say, Mr. Day, that we could hardly stop proceedings for considerations as actually we'd started them before we had any idea of your changes. So I think that said, we'll park that one and we'll move on. So what I'd like now from Mrs. Jardim is, Mrs. Jardim, could we actually have what we have in front of us? Because your report, bless you, doesn't really bear any reflection to the variation of which we started with and which we now have. Would it be possible, Mrs. Jardim, for you to do that for us? Thank you.
Okay, so just to Can you just please clarify? I didn't hear. I missed a little bit of the noise.
Mr. Day kindly advised us that there's actually sort of a couple of tweaks, really, what we've ended up with. If, of course, the responsible authorities are so disposed to remove their objection, they might not be. But there's a couple of tweaks. And could we hear now what the variation to the present licence is, so that we're absolutely clear? That's for my subcommittee members, bless them, who need that in order to impart their decision, and also for all people attending and anybody who may be listening in the public domain. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So what would happen? So at the moment, I can just explain what they have at the moment. And
no, sorry, Mrs. Jardim, I don't know if I'm being fair. What I need from you is, I hoped you'd glean from Mr. Day. I'll go back to Mr. Day. Mr. Day, can you advise Mrs. Jardim exactly what it is you're asking for? Thank you. So she can make a note, and then we're all aware. Thank you.
I'm asking that the opening hours of the premises be amended so that the reference on each day to 1000 hours or 10 a.m. is changed to 8 a.m. I'm asking for that to change. I'm asking for regulated entertainment in the form of live and recorded music to be added to the licence, but only on Thursday, Friday and Saturday nights from 11 p.m, 2300 hours until midnight. I'm asking that additional conditions be attached to the licence. That firstly, live and recorded music provided as regulated entertainment is to be in the basement only. The noise limiter condition that you already have is agreed with environmental health. And then an additional condition that's really in two parts. Whenever live or recorded music is provided after 11 p.m, in other words, other than under the Live Music Act, firstly, at least one SIA registered door supervisor be deployed from 2200 hours, i.e. 10 p.m, until the premises close and all customers have dispersed from the immediate area, and a minimum of 4 tables and 8 chairs will be available for use by customers in the basement area throughout. No other changes to the licence proposed beyond the, I ought to say this, that within the original application is not sought to change this in any way. We proposed an additional condition relating to protecting children from harm, to adopt a Challenge 25 policy, to advertise that, and to ensure that all staff receive training, etc. The wording of that is on page 64, ma'am, of your bundle, under section MD, protection of children from harm, in the original application. And there's nobody has suggested that should be changed or amended in any way.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm now clear on that. I hope you are, Mrs. Jardim, that you have that.
I am clear, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Mr. Day, now that we have ascertained what it is you're asking for, did you want to enlarge on your submission?
Mum, I think it would be helpful to hear from the police as to whether they are now content.
I'll take this as no then. Okay, thank you. So, Mrs. O'Gormley, did you want to add to Mr. Day's submission?
I just really wanted to confirm that we would not be looking to sell alcohol between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. We would clearly, just like this, just for that 2-hour breakfast trade only. And I think Philip Day has addressed everything else. I trust that everybody's read my responses to any objections, etc. I'm happy to answer any questions in regards to that if needed.
Thank you very much. That's extremely helpful. Thank you. And Mr. Thorne?
No, I am fine with Connie's response.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Day, we now have questions of, I must go through the proper process. I don't want to so obliterate the process that we're not understanding where we are. So the next process is questions of the applicant by all parties. So members, do you have any questions for the applicant in the first instance? We're just going to have to wait as to whether our responsible authorities are so content. So Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the information about no alcohol for breakfast is reassuring. It's helpful to hear that. I guess that my concern is about the late night and this condition which both Toby and I raised at the start, really, that the licence appears to indicate that alcohol will be served with food, and yet there were suggestions that the food stopped serving at 9 p.m. And we're asking for a licence to weekends to extend till midnight. Could we have a bit of clarity on that, please?
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Mr. Day?
Yes. When my clients acquired these premises, they didn't take legal advice, and both in relation to the purchase nor in relation to the licence. And indeed, they were only provided with the front page of the licence indicating that it was on and off sales, and not all of the detailed conditions. I was simply asked to arrange for a transfer of the licence and a change to DPS, which I did. They were blissfully unaware of the condition that it is there, but it's sort of halfway through the third page of the conditions, and it doesn't immediately stand out. That was brought to their attention. They accept that they didn't initially comply with that, but they now are doing so, and it is their intention to continue to do so throughout. The principal reason for asking for this now is that these are very, very small premises. If you have more than 20 people downstairs in that basement, they would begin to feel like sardines. You've seen the photographs of it and the like. The condition that we're proposing, that there should be but 4 tables and 8 chairs, that will take up a fair bit of the space, and that is what they intended to do anyway. What they want to do, want to have the facility to be able to do, is to host private bookings with some music in the basement, on the basis principally that there should be buffet food available throughout. Again, if you see the photographs, and I believe that Mrs. O'Gormley is in the premises at the moment, but we'll come to that if need be. The upstairs, and as I put in my written response, a substantial chunk, over a third of it, is taken up with the open plan kitchen that again you can see in the photographs. And it has always been their intention that there should be food available throughout. At the moment, they are providing food throughout, but they're closing at 8 p.m. They originally felt that unless they had the longer hours, that they wouldn't be able to justify the expense of staff. But as their trade builds up and they become more known in the area, the intention is that, yes, they make full use of the hours on the existing licence, but not at this stage to ask for anything else. Let's review the situation as far as they are concerned in a number of months' time and possibly come back with a further application. But that's something for not even tomorrow. The application that you have is now very, very limited.
Does that help, Councillor Headley?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions at this moment?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Headley. Councillor Johnson?
Thank you, Councillor Hadley's asked.
Okay, thank you. We can always bring you back if you do have any further questions at any stage. Okay, thank you for that. Sergeant Gosling, any questions for the applicant, please?
No questions at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Mrs. Busfield, any questions?
No, likewise, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Makowitz, do you have any questions? You might
Hello,
have
yes. I have question to Mr. Days. First, when you said changes to the policy, you said recorded music only from Thursday, Friday, Saturday till midnight. And then you said that recorded and live music as well from 11 o'clock till midnight. Is that correct?
Mr. Day?
Yes, it's live and recorded music from 11 till midnight.
But first, when you were reading, you said recorded music only.
No, that wasn't the case. If I did say that, I made a mistake. I think I said regulated entertainment.
No, that's different part of your sentence.
Yeah, which is.
I can just clarify that. I'll clarify that for both parties, if you could just allow me, please. Just live and recorded music provided. Okay, so it was about live and recorded, which is the regulated, Miss Makovitz, that's what it's called. It did get me for a minute. I thought, oh, what's the regulated? And I thought, oh, it's the live and recorded. It's called regulated. Okay, that's helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, Miss Makovitz? No, thank you. Okay. Councillor Filer, any questions?
I've just got one question, and I'm not sure if you might have answered it already, Mr. Day. I'm not sure. Off sales, is that still part of the application?
Yes, we aren't seeking to remove anything from the existing licence, but as Councillor Butt and Mrs. Jardine pointed out earlier, all sales of alcohol ancillary to food prepared and served on or delivered from the premises. And in terms of off sales, there is an additional condition that alcohol deliveries shall only be made to residential or business addresses. There is nothing in the existing licence to prevent a sale of alcohol taking place inside the physical building and somebody sitting outside to drink it. The existing licence also covers that. I won't go through every condition, but it does say, for example, in this condition 212, if the outside area is used in the future, all tables and chairs shall be removed from the outside area by 2200 hours each day, and no food or alcohol should be served in the outside area after 2200 hours each day. So technically, that's also an off sale, but yeah, we wouldn't want to change that, but it has to be with food.
Okay, so the original license, Councillor Filer, the original right license is not capable of being changed. Okay, it's only a variation, so that sits in train.
On the variation, would you still allow? Would we still be able to allow off sales between 8 AM and 10 AM, which is part of the variation?
No.
No alcohol sales before 10 o'clock in the morning on any day.
Okay, and that was the change to the variation we had before we had a variation of the variation. Councillor Filer, if that helps, thank you. Mr. Hughes, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No questions at present.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Jardim, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No questions, Chair, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. So moving on there to our responsible authorities. Sergeant Gosling, I think you've got a feel of what's being asked, and what we're hoping to hear from you is to advise us as to where you are with these matters, and you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll start really with where we were in relation to the initial application. And I think perhaps mirroring some of the concerns, perhaps Councillor Filer as well. But our main concern was in relation to the apparent departure of the premises from being a restaurant towards being more of a bar, late night, alcohol-led premises. The indications being that there would obviously be additional entertainment and that sort of activity that would suggest that to be the case. So very much approaching this hearing, Chair, it was very much our view, exactly the same as my original document, submitted some weeks back now in respect of the objection. It was very much our view that remained the case. And then nearer the time, in response to some further information that became apparent from the applicant, we then, if you like, elaborated slightly on that in a document that really set out our case. And it's always our intention to try and reduce the amount of time spent on these hearings, and to reduce the amount of time taking up for everybody involved. And then obviously to receive then an amended set of conditions, an amended operating schedule, gave us some real sort of food for thought, if you like. Looking at what has been proposed by the applicant, I think it's absolutely apparent that they intend to maintain a restaurant feel to the premises. I think when it's been very helpfully broken down by the applicant and Mr. Day around what is being applied for in respect of the extension from 8 AM to 10 PM, we don't have data to support any particular issues of crime and disorder during those times. And I think with the addition of the SIA from 10 PM for those periods when there is regulated entertainment, that would certainly give us the assurance that any issues relating to crime and disorder, public nuisance, would be addressed accordingly. And also the fact that it's occurring only in the basement. Really, in relation to the alcohol element, there are no changes, and of course that's one of the things that I'm most concerned with, is that provision of alcohol. So all in all, Chair, I guess the answer you're looking for is that we would be content, if the committee were to feel it appropriate, we would be content that those additional conditions added, and if you like, the reduction in what's being applied for, would not, in our opinion, undermine the licensing objective, crime and disorder. Of course, it is your decision, but we have given that great consideration this morning, and we are pleased that the applicant has come forward with that amendment. And you know, I do apologise for the late hour in which this has occurred, and also apologise to Tanya as well for the extra work involved. But unfortunately, it is these, if you like, the last minute conversations that take place, and perhaps when things start, if you like, becoming real to people. I think the situation as is, and I'm delighted to see that we do have local residents, local councillors engaged in this process. And I think perhaps when all that comes together and it does become real to people, I think that's when decisions are made. And I'm grateful for Mr. Day and the applicant for putting forward the proposals that they have today.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Gosling. That's extremely helpful. If we could turn our mics off, so I don't get any feedback. Kind of you. Mrs. Busfield, do you have anything to add to Sergeant Gosling's submission?
No, thank you, Chair. I have nothing to add.
Thank you very much. Okay. So that said, I now we've heard from the responsible authorities who've put their representations forward. As process, it's required that we now hear from our other persons. So I'm going to read quickly Mrs. Larkham's objection. Some of it may now be satisfied, but I'm going to read it, and this is because she couldn't be with us. Okay. I'm a local resident of Cecil Road, living within earshot of Conroy's Bar. I apologise for my absence from the appeal hearing, which I would have attended if it had been possible to do so without use of Microsoft Teams, etc. As I live close by to Conroy's Bar, my main concern relates to nighttime live and recorded music. This will take place 3 out of the 7 days in every week of the year, nearly 43% of the time. This is, however, increased by additional days at various times in the year and when there are public holidays. Thus, the amount of late night music is certainly not insignificant. I understand that music will be played in the basement area of the building, which should normally help reduce the nuisance aspects to residents, but only if the door onto the street is kept closed. When the weather's hot, I very much doubt that it will be possible to keep the door shut and the customers comfortable at the same time. I'm not sure, but I think I'm correct in saying that there's little or no ventilation in the basement, other than air coming down the stairs and from the ground floor level, mostly from the main entrance to the bar. In conversation with senior member of staff at the bar, I received assurances that every effort is being made to ensure that noise from the music or from customers leaving the building to go out onto the street will be kept to a minimum as possible. The measures which he informed me about all indicated that it's certainly the intention of the owners of Conroy's Bar to avoid causing aggravation to local residents. I wished it were possible for the licence to be given on a provisional trial basis, but I have been informed that is not possible. I therefore conclude by saying that I think it is only a matter of time before there will be cause for one or more local residents to complain and or call the police because the bar is causing a nuisance. So that is Mrs. Mary Larkham's objection. And I think obviously Mrs. Larkham was not aware of some of the mitigations in place, but it's only fair that we do read out her objection. And there are some mitigations in there, which of course we can raise. So that said, Miss Makowitz, it's now your opportunity to put questions to responsible authorities, and we don't, yes, to the responsible authorities. To make your representation, if you want to make your representation, Miss Makowitz, it's time for you to do that now.
Hello, I don't have any questions, but I've prepared a little statement. I'm not sure if this is the correct time to read it.
Absolutely. Let's hear your statement. You have the floor.
I do apologize. English is my not first language, so if I make any mistakes, I do apologize for it. Absolutely. So I live just above the Conroy's Bar, and specifically my bedrooms and my son's bedrooms are above the bar. And the reason I'm making this representation is to ensure that my and my son's safety well-being is met. The current problems we are facing since Conroy's Bar has opened are loud music till 1 a.m. And I mean, this is very loud music. Like I stated in my representation, this music is so loud that we were unable to sleep. At 1 a.m., we closed the bedroom's door and we moved to sofa. I asked the owner at midnight to lower music a little bit, and the response I get was, it's not easy to run a business in residential area. This representation is not just regarding loud music. Since Conroy's Bar has opened, we can see drunk people around our house swearing in the middle of the day. This is about our safety. Extending bar's hours would not get well with Boscombe regeneration scheme, where one of the points is to make Boscombe safer by reducing antisocial behavior and also enhance the appearance of the area. This is not the bar where this is the bar where drunk people sit without tops outside. Also, I can see that all the objectives of personal license have been in breach. Disorder, drunk people behaving antisocially, swearing, sitting half naked outside and swearing. Loud groups after 1 a.m. leaving the bar. Second, public safety. Personally, I don't feel safe here anymore. Third, prevention of public nuisance. I don't see prevention, but increase. And fourth, protection of children from harm. This is not happening. My child is exposed to antisocial behavior. He is not able to get enough sleep, and that means that his basic needs are not met. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Makowitz. Councillor Filer, your opportunity to put your presentation. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I first have to read a letter that was received by Councillor Kelly, and the gentleman who wrote it won't have heard the change. So I'll read it as it is.
Please do.
And you'll have to allow for that.
Indeed.
Yes. Let me read it. This is not me. This is the person who wrote it.
That's fine.
Whilst I agree that no one wants to prevent or discourage a new business in Boscombe, the previous usage as a predominantly a daytime cafe restaurant is far more appropriate for this residential situation than the use described in the application. Therefore, I do not agree with the views expressed. Oh, this is Jane, by my resident. That's what Jane said. Now the resident. I do understand that the town centre and precinct area does have late night venues. But as this is in a residential area, I think this should be considered as an infringement on our quality of life as residents. If allowed to open beyond reasonable hours, I also believe there will be associated public nuisance and crime and disorder as a result of the extended late night hours. 1. All day and night drinking. Fine if people drink responsibly and eat all day, but why not keep it to the standard cafe restaurant hours and close by 11 p.m? We do not live in Europe, and no one goes out for food after 9:30 p.m, so there will only be alcohol consumed after 11 p.m, leading to late night crime and disorder, public nuisance and public safety issues. 2, the late night music license. Again, people are only going to drink and not eat. If the music is acoustic or a local band, fine. But if they have a disco, that is for dancing and drinking, not eating. To be clear, what sort of music plays until 2 a.m? Clearly that will be superseded. Only dance music. So the chairs and tables will be pushed out to one side, no food in sight, and hours of drinking ahead, leading to late night crime and disorder. 3, noise. Whilst the noise will be contained, people will be opening and closing the front door continuously, especially to step outside onto the pavement, where there are already tables and chairs, presumably with a pavement licence. Before you know it, the door will be left open and lots of people will be outside, hanging around, making noise late into the night, and also effectively blocking the street corner where pedestrians have to walk through, and that will be intimidating. All this will lead to late night crime and disorder, public nuisance, public safety issues. He has a suggestion: get an internal door installed to stop the noise nuisance from downstairs. And 4, do we really need to allow off sales from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m? We have a corner shop off license opposite already with basic hours. This will lead to late night crime and disorder, public nuisance, public safety. Jane has written, it's a very welcome thing to have a successful new restaurant cafe extending from the high street, but it's quite another to allow a drinking and music venue until the early hours every weekend, with all the associated problems this will bring. I hope common sense prevails. So thank you, Chairman. I am a local resident. I have to, if I want to go to Boscombe, if my grandchildren now want to go to school, they have to pass these premises. I'm very glad that the applicant has decided that 8 a.m. is not an appropriate time to allow drinking. But I would like to mention to them that a lot of children walk down there on the way home from school in the afternoon at around 3:30 to 4:30. And that would concern me. It's very much a residential area. There are no other venues in this area, and it would concern me if there were people hanging around that you really wouldn't want your children to. I'm sure they will be responsible enough to see that they're not hanging around outside and disturbing kids who are walking home from school. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, just thank you very much for that, Councillor Filer. I'm sure those assurances can be given to you in the summations of the applicant and also the responsible authorities. So then moving to Mr. Hughes, would you like to put forward your presentation, or is there anything you'd like to say?
I actually live directly across the road on the junction of Cecil Road and Swansea Road. I've spoken to the neighbours regarding noise, addressing Miss Makowicz, and the person that lives above her, Declan, has admitted it's his music that has been given her cause to complain, not Conroy's Bar. I've never heard anything from Conroy's whatsoever. My bedroom literally backs onto it. And late nights, I hear a lot of shouting, a lot of abuse, sometimes violence. And that's gone on long before Conroy's was ever there. It comes from wherever people are going in the town, and they're coming back to Swansea Road to get their drugs or to get their whatever, or live there. It's nothing to do with Conroy's Bar whatsoever. The place wasn't even open when that all started. And just recently, I see less of the drug activities that were going on in the area. So I'm all for Conroy's Bar.
Okay, Mr. Hughes.
I do have control.
Thank you very much indeed for that. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. There's opportunity now for questions of responsible authorities and other persons. It may be that these questions aren't needed, but I will offer that process because it is our due process. So are there any questions of the responsible authorities and other persons? Mr. Day, do you have any questions? Mr. Day, are you with us?
Sorry, I was just trying to find the mute button, Mum. Just one question from Ms. Makovich. You've heard what Mr. Hughes has just said about your upstairs neighbour. Have you had issues with noise coming from upstairs rather than downstairs?
Yes, there were situations where neighbors from upstairs were playing loud music as well, but I spoke with him many times and that is not a problem anymore, although he was doing that usually in the middle of the day when his child was at nursery. So I'm not talking about evening, nighttime loud music at the moment. I'm talking the neighbor was playing loud music. Sometimes I spoke with him. This problem is not happening anymore.
I'm not sure how helpful that was, Mr. Day, but I'm not quite sure why you asked it, but carry on.
Then just one other thing. You say about Conroy's. Conroy's, my instructions are that they've been closing of late at 8 p.m. Have you had any recent problems?
Of course not, because since they've applied to amend license, it's very quiet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, are there any questions? Any further questions, Mr. Day?
No, ma'am.
Right, thank you. Mrs. O'Gormley, do you have any questions for Sergeant Gosling or Smakovitz?
I don't. I really just wanted to reconfirm that our premises have been closing at the latest 8 p.m. each day, sometimes earlier.
Okay,
and I just
Miss Gormley, you get an opportunity to summarise in a moment. Okay, it is just for questions. Okay.
Okay, I have no questions at this stage.
Thank you.
No.
Mr. Thorne, any questions?
No.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. And Miss Sardim, any questions?
Sorry, no questions. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So now we move on to everybody has the opportunity to sum up. And I start with the party who spoke last.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes?
Is it possible to ask questions of the responsible authorities?
Oh, members, what am I like? Totally forgotten you. Of course. Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Please come in.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the police, in their deposition, they highlighted a couple of warnings that they'd made to the premises, and I appreciate that obviously they're fairly newly opened and they had a couple of visits. There was quite a lot of evidence in the supplementary pack we had from the applicant around the training log and the other things that were raised by the police. I appreciate that they probably haven't had time to make another visit, but are they reasonably satisfied that compliance with the licence objectives is going in the right direction and the evidence is now forthcoming that will give them that level of comfort, please? Thank you.
Is that all right to answer that, Chair?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, I think it has been a relatively short period. You're absolutely right. As far as how long they've been open, I think we've heard from Mr. Day, if you like, an explanation as to why we found ourselves in those positions following officer visits. I think going forward, to give you some reassurance, if you like, and perhaps touching on something that I would have highlighted in my summarising anyway, but in answer to your question, Councillor, it would be our intention to continue to closely monitor the premises, conduct further visits, and of course, if it was appropriate to do so, to bring the matter before the committee if we were unable to achieve the improvements or to evidence the improvements that we're seeking. It very much does become a bit of a trust exercise, if you like, and at this time we've got the word of the applicant. Mr. Day, I know, has provided a great deal of advice to the applicant, and I think together with our support, then I'm confident that we'll be able to be in a good position to get that improvement.
Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. Thank you for raising that, Councillor Hadley. Did you have another question?
No, that was it. Thank you.
My apologies for omitting you, of course. Councillor Johnson?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on now, it is an opportunity for everybody to sum up. And in your summary, if you could, you're aware of some of the things which are outstanding and some of the things which people want some assurance on. So in your summaries, especially Sergeant Gosling and Mr. Day, if you could cover those, I'm sure that all who are attending would be extremely grateful. So I will start with the party who spoke last to go first, and that's you, Mr. Hughes. Did you have anything to say in summary?
I'm just I'm looking forward to the business. I welcome it to be in the area, and I think it will do well, and it's good for the environment. A lot of people for it, so that's it, basically.
Thank you very much indeed. Unfortunately, Councillor Filer's had to leave us, but I think we've heard and understood her objection. Miss Makowitz, time for you to summarise. Thank you.
What I would like to say that possibly changes to the policy would be very good, and we have to compromise somewhere. I understand that you have to run the business, guys, but I'm living here as well, and not only me, with children. So there has to be compromise somewhere. So reducing live music hours and sale of alcohol would be, having supervisor on the door, that kind of things will help possibly all of us to compromise, because we have to live with each other for in the next future. And, you know, there is no point arguing or anything. We just have to make sure everybody is happy. So I think making changes to the policy will help. It's just what kind of changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Makowitz. Sergeant Gosling, your opportunity now.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think leading on from Miss Makowitz just now, it's really good to hear the concerns from the community in hearings like this. I know I've already touched upon it, but I think it really, you know, that she should take some comfort, hopefully, from my confidence that having mediated down the actual proposal, if you like, purely to reflect a change in hours in the morning, and then some additional entertainment, whilst I appreciate you know, does have an impact on the community, is hopefully mitigated in some significant extent, if you like, by the presence of security whenever that's taking place, and also, if you like, putting that additional distance between Miss Makowitz and the music by ensuring that the music, if you like, beyond the hours that are allowed by the Live Music Act, by moving that to the basement only, will hopefully give her and other neighbours that might not be here today some confidence. We will, and I will repeat it just for the purposes of everybody here that's listening, we will be continuing to monitor the premises. There will be frequent visits, and we are always open to receiving any complaints or comments from the public, and we will act on them as soon as possible to make sure that we can consistently have high standards and the promotion of licensing objectives throughout every premises in Dorset, including this one. And I'll finish there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Gosling. Could we just have confirmation that you are, in fact, withdrawing your objection? You've disappeared.
So, subject to those proposals being put in place,
yep,
then there would be no further need for us to object.
So, subject to those conditions.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you very much, Sergeant Gosling.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Mrs. Busfield, did you want to speak?
Thank you for the opportunity, Chair, but Sergeant Gosling has adequately covered everything.
Thank you very much. Mr. Day, you have the floor.
Thank you, Barb. I'm sorry it was last minute, but better that than not at all. In my defence, I did ask the police for further evidence and invited mediation as long ago as the 20th of April. But these things happen, and I know that people are very busy and dragged away to do other things, not necessarily anything to do with licensing in other parts of the country, but there it is. We have reached an accommodation with the police and environmental health, and I hear what Ms. Makovic says. For her benefit, I want to make 2 points. It's already been touched upon, but if you have problems that are directly related to convoys at any time, you can ask this committee to come back and look at that license again. And they can do everything between doing absolutely nothing at all and tearing up the license completely, and every step in between. There's also been reference to the Live Music Act. The Live Music Act starting point allows live music, in this case between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, that being live and recorded music. But again, if that causes a problem, then you can ask this subcommittee to tear up the Live Music Act exemption. In other words, they wouldn't be able to do it unless they had it specifically put back on their license. So there is something of a sword of Damocles hanging over not just these premises, but every other premises, that if they get it wrong and if they do cause problems under any of the licensing objectives, then this subcommittee can look at it again. It wouldn't be the first time by a long way that they've done that, and it almost certainly won't be the last time either. So I do apologise to you and to the other residents that this change came about so late in the day, but I do assure you it was as a result of seeing some additional material and so on from the police. There it is. I would hope that you, Ma'am, and your colleagues would be minded now to grant the application as amended in full without going any further. And I would hope that these premises can live in peaceful harmony with their neighbours and other local residents. And at the end of the day, this is not intended to be a destination venue. It's intended to be a community venue, looking to local residents, including some of the vulnerable adults and so on, one of whom has been employed and is working at the premises. You've read all of that in Mrs. O'Gormley's lengthy written submissions. I'm not going to go over that again. I can simply tell you that she is passionate about this business. She's passionate about making it work to the benefit of everybody in Boscombe, to help stamp down on the reputation that Boscombe has. This was a corner that sort of drug dealers allegedly hang out on, and that seems to have gone a big step in the right direction. And there it is. I don't propose to say anything more. I don't know if, without repeating anything, Connie, Mrs. O'Gormley or Mr. Thorne might just want to say a final word, with your permission, of course, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Mrs. O'Gormley, you might want to explain with regard to the noise limiter, which is conditioned, which is obviously of great concern to Mrs. Makowitz, and how that is going to work to hopefully mitigate some of the issues that arise from your premise. Thank you, Mrs. O'Gormley.
I just want to reassure everybody that we will do whatever it takes to enable us to continue trading as a community pub. We are more than happy to get a noise limitator to be set to the decibels recommended by the environmental health. We are more than happy to follow any other commitments set by yourselves or the police. I just really want to reassure people that we were very aware of the issues the area had before we took on these premises, and that actually prompted us even more to pursue it. We believe that we can be a really positive impact in the area. We believe that we have already reduced the drug dealings going on in the area. And that has actually been confirmed within one of the objections. I'm a little bit confused by Ms Makowicz's comment saying that the loud music, you're being kept awake till 1 a.m. Because we've actually been closing at 8 p.m. or earlier for some weeks now. So I'm a little confused about that comment, but I would like to reassure you that we want to work with the police, we want to work with the council and help eliminate the issues that are in the area. We are a community business, we are here for the community, and we believe that we can be a great asset going forward. We are offering local people, local jobs. And as Mr. Day stated, somebody with SEN, we are providing our staff members with courses and great opportunities to a career path. And I have faith in the local authorities that they would support a local business making such a positive impact to the local residents.
Thank you, Mrs. Gormley. I think the reference with regard to the noise late at night was the flat upstairs rather than your good self, and I think that we've squared that now with Mrs. Makowicz. Okay. Did Mr. Thorne wish to say anything? Although after this very eloquent.
Can I just say something? Sorry.
Yeah.
No, the noise wasn't regarding the flat upstairs. First month or first 3 weeks when you were open, you were trading till very late. At 1 p.m. people were leaving premises, and the music was loud till 1 a.m. in the morning. So it's quiet from the moment you applied to amend the license. And before amending, the loud music, and it was so loud we couldn't sleep. So that was in the basement, played in the basement.
Okay, Ms. Makowicz, I think you've made your point. I think you've made your point, and I think we are where we are with that. And I think we have the conditions which we're going to seriously consider. Okay, we're going to, all deliberations and all contributions are equally valuable. I think we'll have to, we do not know, you're telling us that, but there's no evidence that that happened. So we need to be very careful as to what weight we give that, but we will consider everything that we've listened to today. Okay, so please be assured of that. Okay, and my apologies if I misunderstood. I thought when Mr. Day had questioned you that you had alluded that the noise was because of the flat upstairs. So that was my mistake. So I apologise. It's all your fault, Mr. Day. Okay. So thank you very much for that. So Mr. Thorne, you don't have anything to add. It was a very eloquent presentation. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Can I just ask one question? Can I ask that all the people who have emailed in favour of us will also be taken into consideration today?
Yes, of course. Yes, those people who write in to support you, everything is considered, Mrs. O'Gormley. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thorne. If you could pop your microphone on mute now, thank you. Mrs. Jardim, do you have any summary?
I don't have anything else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so the hearing now concludes, and once we've completed our meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and our clerk to deliberate. Notification of subcommittee decision will be provided in the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day of which the hearing was held in accordance with the regulations, and that is today, May 11th, Wednesday. And the notification decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. Mr. Parr, could you advise us, please, about the right of appeal?
Yes, from the date of decision, you have a right to appeal the committee's decision to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days.
Thank you very much indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all your submissions today. I think we've got there in the end, and thank you very much for all your work. And you will have to forgive me for the admonishments with regard to some tardy submission of information. I do understand the constraints, but if we could just try and take that on board. Mediation, of course, is always something which is excellent when offered. And I think clearly the subcommittee have something very positive now to go away and consider. And our deliberations will be very, very in-depth. And we hope we can come out with a decision that will suit all parties. So thank you very much for your attention today and your attendance. And I will conclude the meeting. Thank you very much and goodbye.